think what Sophie Cunningham is saying here about the Indiana Fever offense should be obvious. This should be how it is. If you're a Caitlin Clark, if you're a LeBron James, your system should, your basketball offensive system should run through that superstar.
So now Sophie Cunningham is the villain, again. The WNBA reportedly pulled her aside after she said something that, let's be honest, every fan already knew. The Fever's offense runs through Caitlin Clark, and somehow that truth set social media on fire. Do you think Sophie was wrong to say it publicly? Or just bold enough to finally tell the truth? Alright, let's break this down because the reaction to Sophie Cunningham's comments has been nothing short of ridiculous.
And Sophie Cunningham has come out and said such, and says that it was running through her. I guess when she was on the court. Now, we saw a few times where it looked like it was actually running through her. But we also saw times where it looked like it absolutely was not. She was playing off the ball way too much. But what has surprised me about these comments is Sophie Cunningham is getting attacked.
She didn't insult anyone. She didn't leak team secrets. She simply said the Fever's offensive system runs through Caitlin Clark, like it should. That's not shade. That's basketball logic. But apparently, in today's WNBA, saying the obvious can get you warned. So here's what happened. On her podcast, Sophie was talking about how elite players, like Caitlin Clark or LeBron James, shape an entire team's system. She explained that when you have a generational talent, the offense naturally flows through them.
Be Caitlin or like a healthy LeBron, wherever they go, that team will probably be above 500.
Yep. But
is that fair to say?
Yes, but I think that the reason behind that is because those types of athletes, they get to come into an organization, they have the green light, and they can do whatever they want. Where that is very rare to get drafted and be able to control the whole system.
Right. Was CeCe making decisions like?
Yeah.
Within, yeah.
As she should.
No way.
As she should, but I also think that they... Go
ahead.
That's
crazy. I didn't realize that. She's just young. I just didn't think that.
But when you have a generational talent like that, she should have a lot to say of the system. I also think when you have...
Her words were simple. When you've got a talent like that, they should have a say in how the system runs. That's it. And suddenly, it was chaos. Fans started arguing, reporters clipped the quote out of context, and the league apparently wasn't thrilled either. According to people close to the Fever, league reps reached out to remind Sophie about media discipline and limiting internal discussions. Translation: stop talking about Caitlin Clark on your podcast. So, let's get this straight. A player gets warned for saying the offense runs through a superstar who literally leads the league in ratings, merchandise, and headlines. That's not controversy, that's comedy. And here's where it gets even more absurd. Some of the hate came from Caitlin Clark fans themselves. Yeah, the same fans who post highlights of Clark pulling up from the logo are now mad at Sophie for complimenting her. Comments started flooding in. I'm so sick of Sophie. She talks too much. She's clout chasing. She brings unnecessary drama. Really? Drama? For saying the system should run through Clark? If that's controversial, then water's controversial for being wet.
Because we saw what happened. The one game where I'll say you're pretty confident that this was happening was second half of Atlanta, where Caitlin Clark kind of got into it with Stephanie White at halftime, and they come out in the second half. Tash Howard's benched for a lot of it. Kelsey Mitchell gets benched for a good bit of it, and they really go on their huge run, where they go from losing at halftime to winning by 20.
Let's be honest. Sophie's just calling out what everyone saw all season. When Clark had the ball, the Fever looked alive. When she didn't, it looked like 5 players running 5 different plays. But here's the part that's actually worth talking about. Sophie wasn't speaking from the outside looking in. She was in that locker room. She's the one who saw how the team actually operated. If anyone has the right to talk about how the offense works, it's her. But the WNBA doesn't like when players talk without approval. They like control. They like the clean image. No messy quotes, no podcast moments. And Sophie? She's not playing that game. She's always been outspoken. Remember when she was the only Fever player who physically stepped up for Caitlin Clark after she got fouled hard? Yeah. When everyone else backed off, Sophie got in people's faces. And that right there is why she's polarizing. She plays with fire, talks with honesty, and doesn't filter her words to make people comfortable. But here's the thing. If this league actually wants personalities and marketability, they should be thanking her, not warning her. Because guess what? The WNBA's growth right now isn't coming from quiet press conferences. It's coming from players who speak their minds, like Clark, like Sophie, like Angel Reese, like Aja Wilson. Fans tune in because they care about the stories, not just the scores. So now, Sophie says one line, a fact, and the league panics like she dropped classified information. Meanwhile, the Fever's entire playbook is basically get the ball to Clark. But here's the bigger issue. This shows the tension inside Indiana's locker room that fans have sensed all season. Because when Sophie said the system should run through Caitlin, that wasn't just commentary. It was a subtle jab at how often it didn't. We've all seen it. Possessions where Clark's parked in the corner while someone else dribbles the clock away. That's not strategy, that's confusion. And it's not on Sophie for noticing. It's on the coaching staff for pretending it's fine. Yet somehow, she's the one being told to keep quiet. Now, the funny part is, even the people defending her online have started joking that she should get a lawyer before doing another podcast episode. That's how weird this got. Because deep down, people know Sophie was right, but they're uncomfortable admitting the team still has problems running through Clark. It's easier to call her too loud than to admit the system was broken. The irony is, the Fever desperately need voices like hers in the locker room. She's one of the few players who shows passion when things go sideways. She's the one who's willing to call out lazy rotations, missed box outs, and lack of communication. That's leadership, just not the kind the league likes on social media. But here's where this story turns from funny to concerning. Apparently, some within the WNBA front office think Sophie's comments undermine organizational unity. Seriously? What's unified about pretending everything's perfect? If Clark's greatness is the foundation of the Fever's rebuild, then building around her isn't controversial. It's common sense. You can't win games while ignoring your best player. You can't grow a league by silencing players who speak the truth. And you definitely can't warn Sophie Cunningham for saying what fans and analysts have been screaming all year: give Clark the ball and let her cook. Now let's talk about why Sophie's comments hit such a nerve, and why the league's reaction says more about them than about her. Because let's be honest, Sophie Cunningham didn't expose the Fever. She exposed the WNBA's obsession with controlling narratives. The league wants to grow its audience, but it also wants every quote sanitized and pre-approved like it's a corporate press release. And that's exactly why players like Caitlin Clark exploded in popularity in the first place. She doesn't sound like a PR intern. She sounds like a real person. Sophie's the same way. She speaks like a player who's been through it. The wins, the fouls, the cheap shots, the media spin. She's not afraid to say the quiet part out loud. And that's what this league needs. Authenticity. But instead of embracing that, the WNBA panicked. They saw one clip, a couple of social media meltdowns, and suddenly Sophie's too outspoken. Meanwhile, they'll happily promote drama when it helps engagement. When Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark bump shoulders, that's passion. When Sophie calls Clark a generational talent, suddenly it's controversial. Make it make sense. The truth is, Sophie's podcast comments didn't just strike fans. They rattled people inside the organization. Because what she said, between the lines, hinted at something bigger. The Fever's internal hierarchy is still unclear. Who's leading? Who's following? Because if the offense should run through Clark, and everyone knows it, then why didn't it consistently happen this season? That's the question nobody wants to answer. Even Coach Stephanie White's post-game interviews felt cautious all year. She'd say things like, "We're learning to balance everyone's roles." Translation: we're still figuring out how to build around Caitlin without making it look like it's only Caitlin. But that's exactly the problem. It is Caitlin's team. Everyone knows it. Even the sponsors know it. The Fever's jersey sales, ticket sales, and national coverage are built around her name. Acting like it's a democracy on the court just confuses everyone, including the players. And that's why Sophie's words hit so hard. She said what the coaching staff couldn't. She basically said, give Caitlin the green light and let the team adjust around her. It's not rocket science. It's basketball. But instead of applauding her honesty, the WNBA decided to treat it like a PR emergency. You know what's crazy? Sophie wasn't even critical. She was complimentary. She compared Caitlin Clark to LeBron James. That's one of the biggest compliments a player can give. And people still got mad. Fans said she was riding coattails. Others said she was speaking for attention. But ask yourself this. If she had said the same thing about Aja Wilson or Breanna Stewart, would anyone have cared? Probably not. Because this isn't really about Sophie. It's about Caitlin Clark, and how every sentence involving her name turns into a storm. The league knows Clark moves numbers. That's why they want to control the conversation. But they can't. Because players like Sophie keep reminding everyone that Clark's presence changes everything. And deep down, that makes some people uncomfortable. Because the moment you admit Clark's impact, you also admit the WNBA's success depends heavily on one player. And that's a tough pill for some longtime insiders to swallow. Now, the wildest part? Sophie isn't backing down. After the backlash, she posted a simple tweet. Nothing but love. Just facts. That's it. Short, simple, confident. And honestly, that sums her up perfectly. Sophie's not afraid of smoke. She's been getting booed since college. She's been called every name in the book. But she always keeps showing up, ready to compete, ready to defend her teammates, including Caitlin Clark. Remember earlier this season when Clark got shoved to the ground and everyone just stood there? Sophie was the only one who stepped up. That's the difference between her and most of the league. She doesn't hide behind keeping it professional. She protects her people. So now, seeing her get labeled as the problem for speaking out is honestly laughable. And it's not just fans noticing, reporters are starting to push back too. Several WNBA insiders said privately that the league's reaction to Sophie's comments was overblown, and that nothing she said violated any media guidelines. So why the warning? Because she made the league uncomfortable, and that's exactly why her voice matters. When you start getting media warnings for telling the truth, it means you're hitting the right nerve. But here's the twist. Caitlin Clark herself reportedly didn't mind Sophie's comments at all. According to team insiders, Clark laughed about the whole thing, saying something like, "Sophie's just Sophie. That says it all." Clark didn't take offense. The team didn't implode. The only people panicking were those trying too hard to keep the league's image polished. So here's the irony. The WNBA wants to grow its audience, yet they keep punishing the exact personalities that make fans care. Sophie's outspoken, confident, fearless, the kind of player that sparks debates and drives clicks. But instead of celebrating that, they want silence. Meanwhile, the fans are tired of scripted interviews and safe soundbites. They want real talk, and that's what Sophie gives them. So, if the league's goal is to keep growing, they might want to rethink who they're warning. Because players like Sophie are the reason people outside of Indiana even care about the Fever right now. Her quote didn't hurt the WNBA. It helped it. It reminded everyone that Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's the player. The one the offense, the team, and probably the league itself should revolve around. And honestly, deep down, even her haters know Sophie was right. They just don't like that she said it out loud. Because when you say the truth in public, it forces people to confront the politics behind the scenes. That's what Sophie did. And that's why the WNBA panicked. Because she didn't just praise Caitlin Clark. She exposed how much control the league tries to have over players who speak freely. And that's the real story here. Sophie Cunningham didn't get warned for disrespecting anyone. She got warned for breaking the script. And if that's where the league's at right now, silencing honesty, then maybe it's not Sophie that needs fixing. Maybe it's the system. Because here's the truth. Stars like Caitlin Clark don't thrive in silence. They thrive in authenticity. They attract fans because they're unapologetically themselves. So if the WNBA truly wants to grow, It should let players like Sophie speak their minds. Even when it's messy, even when it's blunt, even when it makes headlines. That's how real sports leagues evolve. You can't build global excitement around a league if you treat every honest opinion like a crime scene. And right now, Sophie Cunningham just reminded everyone what real competition and real honesty looks like. So yeah, the WNBA can warn her all they want, but the fans, they're listening because she's not wrong. She just said what everyone else was too scared to admit. The Indiana Fever offense belongs to Caitlin Clark, and the WNBA's future probably does too. So what do you think? Was Sophie out of line or just saying what needed to be said? Drop your thoughts below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more no-fluff WNBA coverage. Because if the league keeps warning players for telling the truth, Sophie Cunningham might just become the most honest voice left in the game.